भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text number 32. Kechidahorajam jatam punyashlokasya kirtaye yado priyashyan bhavaye malyashyeva chandanam. Kechidahorajam jatam punyashlokasya kirtaye yado priyashyan bhavaye malyashyeva chandanam. Kechidahorajam jatam punyashlokasya kirtaye yado priyashyan bhavaye malyashyeva chandanam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Some say that the unborn is born for the glorification of pious kings. Another says that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. Purport. Because the Lord's appearance in this material world is bewildering, there are different opinions about the birth of the unborn. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he takes his birth in the material world, although he is the Lord of all creations and he is unborn. So there cannot be any denial of the birth of the unborn, because he himself establishes the truth. But still there are different opinions as to why he takes his birth. That is also declared in the Bhagavad Gita. He appears by his own internal potency to re-establish the principles of religion and to protect the pious and to annihilate the impious. That is the mission of the appearance of the unborn. Still, it is said that the Lord is there to glorify the pious king Yudhishthira. Lord Sri Krishna certainly wanted to establish the kingdom of the Pandavas for the good of all in the world. When there is a pious king ruling over the world, the people are happy. When the ruler is impious, the people are unhappy. In the age of Kali, in most cases, the rulers are impious, and therefore the citizens are also continuously unhappy. But in the case of democracy, the impious citizens themselves select their representative to rule over them, and therefore they cannot blame anyone for their unhappiness. Maharaj Nala was also celebrated as a great pious king, but he had no connection with Lord Krishna. Therefore, Maharaj Yudhishthira is meant here to be glorified by Lord Krishna. He had also glorified King Yadu, having taken his birth in the family. He is known as Yadava, Yaduvir, Yadunandan, etc. Although the Lord is always independent of such obligation, he is just like the sandalwood that grows in the Malaya hills. Trees can grow anywhere and everywhere, yet because the sandalwood trees grow mostly in the area of Malaya hills, the names sandalwood and the Malaya hills are interrelated. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Lord is ever unborn like the sun, and yet he appears as the sun rises on the eastern horizon. The sun is never the sun of the eastern horizon, so the Lord is no one's son, but he is the father of everything that be. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nidinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चादेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from teachings of Queen Kunti. And now in this particular section, Kunti Maharani is basically explaining the reason for Lord's birth, Lord's appearance in this world. So the series of verses from here on, another 3-4 verses, she explains the various reasons which people say that Lord has appeared for. So in this verse she is saying, Kechid ahur ajam jatam. Kechid means someone, ahu. Someone says, ajam jatam. The Lord who is ajam, he takes birth. So in English language, there is an expression of speech called oxymoron. Oxymoron is the two words which are a sentence which are two words which apparently have the opposite meaning. Like some of the oxymoron is, the people say, she is pretty ugly. So this is like oxymoron, is pretty ugly. Somebody said, like we generally say that, open secret. Something is secret, then how it is open. So this is the example of oxymoron. And somebody was saying that, happily married. This is also oxymoron. So in this verse actually, this is an oxymoron that Krishna is ajam, he never takes birth, but jatam, he took birth. So Kechid ahur ajam jatam, someone says that the Lord who is ajam, he takes birth. Why he takes birth? So the reasons has been explained here. Punna shlokasya kirtaye. So one of the reason is to glorify whom? Punna shloka. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam we read this expression that the Supreme Lord, he is glorified as Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka, Prabhupada explained the two meanings of Uttama Shloka. One who is glorified by the choicest poetry, Uttama Shloka. And also, Uttama means Udgat Tama, one who is beyond the Tamoguna, above all the modes basically, is also Uttama. So Lord is transcendental. So Lord is glorified as Uttama Shloka, but the devotees who are in connection with the Lord, they are called as Punna Shloka. So Lord comes to glorify Punna Shlokasya Kirtaye. Why the Ajam Jatam, the unborn Lord takes birth, appears here for the, what is the reason? To glorify Kirtaye, Punna Shlokasya Kirtaye. To glorify his devotees. And Yado Priyashyan Vavaye. And also another reason has been explained here is that he come to please Yadu, the king Yadu, who is very dear. Yado Priyashyan Vavaye Malasheva Chandanam. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. So here it has been explained that Lord, as Lord himself declares, Prabhupada is quoting in the purport from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the reason that Krishna describes for his appearance is Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma sanstapna arthaya. That is the reason. Though the Lord is ajobisan avyatma bhutanam ishwarobisan sambhavami atma maya. Though he is aja, he is unborn, but he appears by atma maya, by his own internal potency. Right? The Lord is ajobisan avyatma, he is avyaya atma. Lord is not like all of us who are way Atma. Like everything deteriorates in this world. Right? This body also deteriorates with the time. And then this body will be vanished. And then we have to take another body. Lord's case is not like that. He is Avaya Atma. So Atma has various meanings. Prabhupada explains in one of the purport in the Bhagavad Gita. So Atma is mind. Atma is also refers to intelligence. Atma is also refers to the soul. And there's many more meanings to the Atma actually. So when we talk about Krishna, he is Avaya Atma. Everything about Lord is, it never vanishes. It never deteriorates. Either his body or his intelligence and his abilities and soul. We cannot say that Lord's soul doesn't deteriorate because there's no difference between Lord's body and the soul. It is one and the same. So that is the reason already been explained that Lord comes for all this reason, and Prabhupada gives the story. Prabhupada says that how sometime important person, say the president of the country, on some special days, say the Republic Day in India or Independence Day, he decides to visit the prison house. He wants to distribute something to the prisoners, right? And he goes with his own sweet will. And then someone in the jail, some prisoners, they start talking. Hey, look at this president. He's also in the jail now. He has also become the prisoner. But there is a difference. The president is also in the prison and the prisoner is also in the prison. The difference is the president comes by his own sweet will. He is not bound by any law to come there, for any punishment. So that's the understanding. So Lord comes by his own sweet will. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. He comes by his own internal potency. And why he comes? And that has been explained. Punna Shlokasya Kirtaye. To glorify his devotees. Yado Priyashyan Bhavaye. To please his devotees, the Yadu kings. Those who are very, very dear to Krishna. So now, one thing we understand that how it is so very important to glorify the devotees. One of the reasons has been described here is why Lord comes. There are multiple reasons can be explained, and Kunti Maharani will explain multiple reasons in the few more verses. But one of the reason, very important reason is Lord comes to please his devotee, to glorify his devotee. It is so very important to understand this principle that our scriptures, they always talks about that one should glorify the Lord. This is the whole idea of, the message of the scriptures. But when we read the scriptures more deeply, then we understand it is equally important to glorify the devotees of the Lord. And that is one of the reasons that Lord appears in this world. Krishna is glorifying his devotees in so many ways. Right? So one of the purport Prabhupada writes here says glorifying the Lord and glorifying the Lord's devotees are the same. Or rather, glorifying the devotee is more important than glorifying the Lord directly. Narottam Das Thakur explains this fact. Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Paya Chakeba. One cannot be liberated from material contamination without sincerely serving a devotee of Krishna. So sometimes it's a very important principle, and then devotee should be very careful. We all understand that we shouldn't glorify Krishna. We all understand. We never condemn Krishna. We never criticize Krishna. We never try to find fault with Krishna. But if we are not careful, then we start doing all these things with the devotees. We find fault with them. We criticize. We condemn. But the principle is one should glorify the devotees of the Lord as we glorify the Supreme Lord. It is equally important. Prabhupada is saying it is even more important to glorify the Lord. Actually, there is this verse comes in the third canto. Says, Charitam Dasya Rajarsher Adi Rajasya Sattama Bruhi Me Shraddha Dhanaya Vishwakshena Shrayo Asau. So the translation says, O best of the virtuous, the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead Hari. And thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I am very eager to hear. So it's a small purport but very powerful purport that in connection what we are reading today. Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the absolute world, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely the development of devotional service. So either we hear about Krishna or we hear about the pure devotee of Krishna like Srila Prabhupada. Both have the same effect. And what is that effect? The development of devotional service. So this is very important. Now, actually, it is so apt, like many times devotees, they discuss, they hear the pastimes of Prabhupada, so many wonderful memories and, incidents that devotees keep sharing. So we should understand from the pages of Bhagavatam, it has the equal effect of hearing on the Lord. There is another pastime that happened, that one time when Prabhupada, in one of the class he was explaining, Antakalecha Mame Vasmarana, that at the end of life, if somebody remembers the Lord, then Tyaktva Deham Punarjanmanaiti. So then that person goes back to Krishna. So one lady was sitting at the back, apparently very new to Krishna consciousness. And she asked a question at the end of the class. She says, Swamiji, you were saying that at the end of the life, if we can remember Krishna, but we are not seeing Krishna. So I don't know how to remember Krishna without seeing him. I don't know much about Krishna. But I have seen you, Swamiji. And for me it is easy to remember you at the time of death. So what will be the effect if I remember you? So Prabhupada paused for a moment and then he, with a smiling face, Prabhupada says, the result will be the same. So that is what, and actually it's not like that, oh, Prabhupada said something just like that to impress someone. But we can substantiate those statements from the Bhagavatam. So this particular verse from the third canto, it is saying that in the absolute world there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotees. That is what is the absolute. Right. One time Prabhupada, he was visiting one of the temple, and in the altar there was a photo. Prabhupada's photo was there. And somehow I think it fell down. It was not properly kept. Something. And then Prabhupada pointed out. And then Prabhupada says to this devotee that, the spiritual master's photo should be treated as good as the Lord. Because on the spiritual platform, there's no difference between the spiritual master himself or his photo. That is spiritual. So his spiritual master is a person and his photo there is no difference. And then Prabhupada says, on the material platform, either the person or photo, everything is illusion. Right? So we understand that there's no difference between the Lord and his devotees. And it is so very important that one hears, one glorifies the glories of the pure devotee. And that is one of the reasons has been explained here, that Lord personally comes to glorify his devotees. Right? So this Giriraj Maharaj remembers that one time Srila Prabhupada in his room in Bombay, they're all sitting, some of the devotees, and Prabhupada was sitting in his room. And one of the devotee, he started glorifying another devotee who was leading the kirtan. And he was saying, oh, such a wonderful kirtan you are leading and all that. Like that he was appreciating, glorifying. And suddenly he remembered that one instruction from the nectar of devotion, that one should not glorify anybody else in front of the Lord in the temple. Lord should only be glorified. That is the instruction given. So immediately, as soon as this instruction came to this devotee's mind, he thought, oh, Prabhupada is sitting here, so I should not be, glorifying any other devotee in front of Prabhupada. And like that, so he kind of stopped doing that. And then Prabhupada understood. And then Prabhupada replied in a different way. He said that Krishna is already glorified, but he takes more pleasure when his devotees are glorified. Then Srila Prabhupada was indicating that even his disciples, like devotees on our level, they also count as devotees, and Krishna also takes pleasure in hearing them glorified. So this Giriraj Maharaj is sharing this memory that we glorify Krishna and then we try to glorify the pure devotees of Krishna like Srila Prabhupada, so many great acharyas. But then many times we miss out glorifying the devotees who are like amongst us, around us, to appreciate. That is also another important principle, that one should glorify the Vaishnava. And then Prabhupada actually through this pastime indicated that every devotee is important for Krishna, and when they are glorified, Krishna becomes pleased. In fact, this is the quotation from Adi Puran, which is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also it is quoted by Rupa Goswami in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. So this particular verse says, Ye me bhakta jana bhartha, na me bhaktas chate janaha, mad bhaktanam che ye bhaktas, te me bhaktatamamataha. It's a beautiful verse. It says, Ye me bhakta jana partha, na me bhaktas chate janaha. Ye me bhakta jana, Upartha, Krishna is talking to Arjuna. He is saying, Ye me bhakta jana. Those who says that we are your devotees of Krishna, na me bhaktas, they are not my devotees. Te janaha. Those who claims that I am your devotee is not my devotee. Mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas. But one who is mad bhaktanam, who is the devotee of my devotee, chaye bhaktas. Te me bhakta tamamadaha. He is factually the great devotee. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees. But those who are devotees of my servants are factually my devotees. So this is the principle given in the scriptures. And that is the same principle that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also establishes by saying, Gopi Bharatur Padakamalaya or Das 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 Anudas. Right? We try to not to become the direct devotee of the Lord, but we try to become the devotee of the devotee, the servant of the servant of the servant. So that is the principle. So we can definitely glorify the Supreme Lord, but also we should try to glorify the devotees around us. That is also another very important principle, because devotees are very, very dear to the Lord. Lord personally comes. And when He comes to glorify. Punna shloka shakirtaya. He wants to glorify the Lord. Right? One time, this devotee, his name is Achyutananda. So when this devotee was living in Calcutta, in one of the house, and one time this devotee Achyutananda, he was talking to the landlord of the house in Calcutta. So this person who was the landlord of this house, he was also a Bengali gentleman, and he was also kind of a devotee, but he has his own ideas of spiritual life. So one time when these landlords were talking to this Achyutanand Prabhu, and then this person was preaching, he was saying, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is more important. He is more important than Radha and Krishna. And like that he was explaining that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the original, and then Radha and Krishna comes from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya is greater than Radha and Krishna. That was his understanding. And this devotee was also apparently very new, so he was kind of got confused. And then this person was giving the example. He was saying the example is that says that just like a rasgulla is made of milk and sugar, but it is better than milk and sugar. Rasgulla is better. So he's saying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is better than Radha and Krishna. So this person thought it's a good example, good analogy, and he got confused. So he went to Prabhupada, and then he was asking that Prabhupada, this is what he is saying, so how to understand this? And then Prabhupada replied that Radha and Krishna come first, and then they combine and become Lord Chaitanya. He said the same example. First, milk and sugar exist separately, and then they combine and become Rasgulla. So then Achyutananda asked, well, who is greater? Same example you also gave, same example you are also giving. My question is, who is greater? Rasgulla is better or sugar or milk is better? Radha Krishna is greater or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is greater? He asked. Who is greater? Srila Prabhupada closed his eyes and paused for a moment and then he replied, Radha Rani is the greatest. And he pointed out to a picture on the wall where Radharan is sitting on a higher platform and Krishna is kneeling by her feet and begging for her favor. So he said, Radharani is the greatest. And then he pointed to another picture on the wall that showed little Krishna carrying the shoes of Nanda Maharaj on his head. And then he said, Nanda Maharaj is the greatest. Then he said that the devotee is the greatest because Krishna likes to become the servant of his devotee. So Krishna likes to become the servant. Krishna comes to glorify the devotees, and in the Bhagavatam 9th canto, Krishna says, Aham bhakta paradino hi aswatantra vaduja sadhu vir grastha hirdayo bhaktar bhakta jana priyaha. So Krishna says, Aham bhakta paradino. I'm not independent. I'm dependent on my bhaktas. Hi aswatantra ivaduja. I'm not swatantra. I'm not independent. Sadhu vir grastha hirdayo. I'm sitting in the heart, within the core of their hearts, because their heart is completely pure. There's no material desires. Bhaktar bhakta jana priya. And he says, what to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotees are dear to me. So this is very, very important, that not only just devotees, but the devotees of devotees are also very, very dear to Krishna, and Krishna comes to glorify the devotees. One time there was a discussion, there was conversation going amongst some devotees, and this Brahmanand Prabhu, he shares this memory that in the initial days when devotees are also not well versed with the philosophy, so there was a discussion. They are saying that Prabhupada is equal to Krishna. There's a kind of discussion came. Some devotees are talking. Somebody is saying, no, Krishna is different and Prabhupada is different. They cannot be. Krishna is God, Prabhupada is not God. And like that, different people have a different opinion. They're sharing their ideas and understanding. And then it comes to Brahmanand Prabhu. And they ask, what is your opinion? And then Brahmanand Prabhu, in that moment, he suddenly realized something, became very grave. And then he says, actually, Prabhupada is greater than Krishna. He is not equal to Krishna. He is greater than Krishna. And then there were tears in his eyes. And he says, it is Prabhupada who came to Lower East Side. And he engaged all of us, all hippies, and engaged in the devotional service. So Prabhupada is greater than Krishna. Right? So that is what, that devotees are sometimes greater than the Supreme Lord himself. That's the understanding. And to glorify such devotees is very, very important principle. Right? And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one time, so happened that we all know that Prabhupada's God brothers, they are not happy. They are not very appreciative about Prabhupada's success in the Western world. They are envious. And they would try to, minimize the position of Prabhupada. They'll talk something very low about Prabhupada. No, what Prabhupada has done. He's just a good businessman. He knows that how to, make the business. And like that, they're trying to, minimize Prabhupada's position. So one time in Mayapur, one such god brother of Srila Prabhupada, he was talking to one of the American disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Apparently he was very new. And he was saying that, Prabhupada had not done anything great. You guys are like too much talking about Prabhupada, glorifying him too much. Nothing great he has done. And then this devotee was sharing, no, but Prabhupada has preached the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu around the world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted, Pratyute Achayata Nagaradigrama, Prabhupada had done that. And this god brother of Prabhupada was saying, no, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never wanted that to happen. So he was misguiding. Talking something because out of enviousness. Said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never wanted this to preach around the world. If he wanted, then he himself would have gone around the world and preached. Why didn't he do that if he wanted that? So the devotee didn't have the answer. He didn't know what to answer. So he came back to Prabhupada and he says that Prabhupada, I met this person and he was saying like that. So it was on a morning walk, and this devotee was there, and Prabhupada was walking, saying that Prabhupada, your God brother, he was saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never wanted this message to go around the world. If he wanted, then he himself would have preached. And then Prabhupada was walking. Suddenly he stopped. And then Prabhupada turned towards the devotee. And then he put his cane down very strongly. Says, yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if he wanted, he would have preached this message around the world. But he wanted to give that credit to me. He left that credit for me. Right? So Lord wants to give credit. Lord wants to glorify his devotees. Punna shlokasya kirtaye. And that is what this Kunti Maharani is saying here. One of the reasons for the Lord to appear in this world is the Lord wants to glorify. And then we see that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Krishna glorified Srila Prabhupada, one of his devotee. That Prabhupada has to go through so many challenges, so many difficulties, 43 years of struggle, 43 years of preparation, despite multiple failures. And finally, he could do that. And that is how now whole world knows the glories of Prabhupada. And it is all like Krishna is glorifying, Krishna is coming in this world to glorify his pure devotees. So following the footsteps of Krishna, this is our duty that we also glorify, such pure devotee of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada. Whenever we get the chance, we should go and preach the glories of our glorious spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, by sharing the message of Srila Prabhupada with Yare Dekho Tareka Ho Krishna Upadesh. So in that mood, in that spirit, we go and share this message, and that will be the glorification of Srila Prabhupada, and that will be the great service. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually predicted. There was 3 prediction by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. What are the 3 prediction? He says, a personality will soon appear, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, and he will travel all over the world to spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So that was the prediction 1. A personality will soon appear, and then he will spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Second prediction was, very soon the chanting of Harinam Sankirtan will be spread all over the world. Oh, when will that day come when people from America, England, France, Germany, Russia will take up kartals and mridangas and chant Hare Krishna in their towns. So that was second prediction. The day will come when people around the world, they will come with the mridanga kartal and chant the Hare Krishna. The third prediction, when will that day come when the fair-skinned foreigners will come to Sri Mayapur Dham and join the Bengali Vaishnavas to chant Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan. When will that day be? Prabhupada writes in one place that it is of a great spiritual significance that Prabhupada was born in 1896. The same year, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent the book on the life and precepts of Chaitanya to the foreign country. Either McGill University or McGill Universities he sent. So Prabhupada says it is of great significance that we are born in the same year when Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent that book. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur made this prediction, and just after 100 years, in 1986, after Bhaktivinoda Thakur's third prediction, the 3,000 fair-skinned devotees from America, England, France, Germany, Russia, and many more other countries, they gathered at the ISKCON Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir in Sridham, Mayapur. They joined 1,000 Bengali Vaishnavas to rock the universe by chanting Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari. Srila Sachinandan Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. So, how the Supreme Lord comes to glorify his devotees, and his devotees, they are also glorifying, they are giving, they are leaving the credit for their devotees. And then Prabhupada has left further that credit for all of us. Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the credit for Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada, in this legacy, we had to continue. We had to preach. First, Janma Sarthak Kari, Kara Parapkar. First, we become very sincere devotees in our practices. We become very exemplary by our practice. And then we go and preach and bring more and more people in the service of Srila Prabhupada. and that will be the glorification of Srila Prabhupada, and will become the Nimitt Matram Bhavasa Visachin. So we can become an instrument and will also be glorified. Of course, we don't do with the idea of that will be glorified, but the Acharya is left that legacy for all of us to take this message further, and then in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. And that is the purpose that here Kunti Maharani is saying, Kechida Hurajam Jadam Punna Shloka Shakirthe Yado Preshan Vavaye Malyasheva Chandanam. And this is also very important that Lord appears. Prabhupada explains Malyasheva Chandanam, that Chandan can grow anywhere. But since the Chandan is grown into Malaya hills in Malaysia, that place becomes glorified. And now people say, oh, it is Chandan from Malaya hills. So it is not the glories of the Malaya, it is the glories of the Chandan. So similarly, the Lord appears, like Prabhupada gives the example here, that sun rises in the eastern horizon. So we say the sun rises in the east, and then east become glorified. But there's nothing about special about east. East is like as equal as west, north, and south. But just because sun rises, it becomes glorified. Everybody knows east means sun is rising. So similarly, Yado Priyashan Vavaye Mulayashe Chandanam, Krishna appears in that particular family so that that family is glorified. The Yadukul is glorified. Otherwise, Lord is not bound. He can come from anywhere. So to glorify the Yadus, to glorify his devotees, Punya Shloka Shakirthe, that is the reason identified by Kunti Maharani in this verse, Kechida Ahurajam Jatam, that unborn is born to glorify his devotees. So these are some of the thoughts on this verse. And then Kunti Maharani continues to explain various other reasons why Lord appears, which we'll discuss in our next session. Hare Krishna, unless anybody has any quick question or any comment, we can take up. Yes. It is from the Adi Purana originally. Krishna is talking to Arjuna. You can find it in the Madhya Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, 8.11, I guess. I can just see. It is from Madhya Leela 11.28. Yes. Okay, let's stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nidai Gaur Mahamanande.